Ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor to stand before you today and speak on a subject that touches the very core of human relationships, emotions, and the complexities of the human heart. Today, I want to talk about a profound and sometimes painful experience when the narcissist believes you have scammed them. Now, I want to begin by acknowledging the difficulty of dealing with narcissism. Narcissism, by its very nature, is not just about self-obsession or vanity, as many people think. It goes deeper than that. It is a form of distorted self-worth, one that needs constant validation from the outside world, one that thrives on control, manipulation, and a deep fear of being exposed or rejected. And when we engage with narcissistic individuals, it's as though we are walking through a maze with no clear exit, constantly subjected to their whims and demands. But imagine this, you, the one who has been trying to help, trying to love, trying to support, suddenly find yourself accused of scamming them. You may have given your time, your effort, your resources, and your heart in the most genuine way possible, but to the narcissist, it doesn't matter. In their eyes, you have somehow betrayed them. You have somehow wronged them. You are now the perpetrator of a deception that exists only in their mind. It is a cruel irony that the very one who has tried to build trust and give love is now seen as the enemy, the scammer, the deceiver. Why does this happen? Let's dive into this for a moment. You see, a narcissist operates from a foundation of insecurity. They create an image of themselves that they want the world to see. This image is often grandiose and flawless. It is not just a public mask, but a carefully constructed facade to protect the fragile ego beneath. So when you, as someone who genuinely cares, come into their life with good intentions, they perceive you not as a source of trust or partnership, but as a threat to the image they have so carefully crafted. Your authenticity, your sincerity, your genuineness, they cannot comprehend it. The narcissist lives in a world where they are always the center of attention, where everything revolves around their needs, desires, and emotion. When you interact with them, it is only natural that they expect you to serve that world, to meet their needs without question, to support their narrative without hesitation. But when you show them something different, when you begin to see beyond the surface, when you begin to question their manipulations, when you refuse to play along with the game they've created, you are no longer useful to them. And so in their eyes, you have become the one who has scammed them. But let's step back and ask ourselves, what is a scam? A scam is an act of deceit, manipulation, or fraud, typically to gain something at the expense of others. But I ask you, how can someone who has offered their truth, their trust, and their love be accused of scamming another? How can someone who has given their best effort, their time, their resources, their very essence be labeled as a deceiver? This is the paradox of the narcissist's mind. For the narcissist, the very idea that you might have your own needs, desires, and boundaries is incomprehensible. They do not recognize your individuality, your autonomy, or your right to be whole in your own right. To them, you are a tool, an instrument, a means to fulfill their desires. And when you refuse to be that, when you dare to assert your independence, when you stand firm in your identity, they feel betrayed. In their minds, you have not only failed to meet their expectations, but you have also robbed them of the control and attention they demand. You have scammed them by not being who they wanted you to be. You have scammed them by not playing the role they had scripted for you. This is where the true tragedy lies, the narcissist's inability to see beyond their own needs. They cannot fathom that relationships are built on mutual respect, trust, and understanding. They cannot understand that love and connection are not transactional, that they do not exist to serve their personal agendas. So when you, with all your genuine love and efforts, refuse to play along, they lash out, labeling you a scammer, and they believe it. They will repeat it to themselves until they have convinced themselves that you are indeed the one who has wronged them. But here is the truth. You have not scammed them. In fact, you have done the opposite. You have given of yourself in ways they could never understand. You have extended grace where there was none, love where there was none, and truth where there was only deception. You have offered something that is pure and untainted, but they, blinded by their own distortion of reality, cannot see it. Now, let's talk about how you should respond to this accusation. First and foremost, you must recognize that this is not about you. This is about their inability to accept anything that challenges their sense of superiority. It is about their need to maintain control over every situation. And when that control slips away, they must find someone to blame. And unfortunately, that person is often you. But you must hold fast to the truth. Do not internalize their accusations. Do not allow their twisted perception of reality to shape your own. Remember that you are not defined by their words or actions. You are defined by your own values, your own truth, and your own integrity. You are not a scammer. You are a person of worth and dignity, capable of offering love and honesty in a world that desperately needs it. In the face of such false accusations, you must rise above the need to defend yourself. The truth will always stand on its own. You do not need to fight to prove yourself to someone who refuses to see you for who you are. In fact, the more you engage in this battle, the more you will only feed into their narrative. Instead, stand firm in your identity, knowing that your worth is not dependent on their approval or their twisted version of events. At the end of the day, the narcissist will continue to live in their world of distorted truths, constantly seeking validation and control. But you have the power to rise above. You have the power to walk in your own truth, to let go of the toxic accusations and embrace the peace that comes from knowing who you are. So, my friends, when the narcissist thinks you've scammed them, remember this. Their perception is not your reality. Your worth is not defined by their lies. And no matter what they say, you are not the scammer. You are the one who has chosen truth, love, and integrity over the games they play. Keep walking in your light and let their darkness fall away. Narcissism is not merely about vanity or self-centeredness. It originates from a deeper, more complex place within the individual. At its core, narcissism is a defense mechanism born out of profound insecurity. The narcissist creates an inflated sense of self-worth, one that is often based on external validation and admiration, because deep down they struggle with a fragile and vulnerable self-esteem. This facade is their armor built to shield them from the harshness of reality, the reality where they feel inadequate, unimportant, and often invisible. The narcissist's sense of self is not rooted in genuine self-esteem or self-respect. Instead, it is a carefully crafted illusion that requires constant reinforcement. They need people around them to mirror their grandiosity, to validate their sense of superiority. This external validation becomes the cornerstone of their identity, the only thing that can temporarily fill the emptiness they feel inside. Without it, their constructed sense of self would crumble, and they would be left exposed to the deep-rooted insecurities that they work so hard to hide. This constant need for validation creates a cycle of dependency on others, where the narcissist demands attention, praise, and admiration. The people in their lives are seen not as individuals with their own needs, desires, and emotions, but as tools to serve the narcissist's agenda. The narcissist's insecurity makes it impossible for them to engage in a relationship of equals. Instead, relationships become transactional, a means of feeding their insatiable need for validation. When these needs are not met, the narcissist's reaction can be swift and harsh, turning to anger, manipulation, or even accusations. The narcissist's insecurity is also the root of their inability to handle criticism or any form of perceived rejection. When faced with anything that challenges their self-image or exposes their flaws, the narcissist may lash out or withdraw in self-protection. The threat to their inflated ego is unbearable, and they will go to great lengths to avoid confronting the truth about themselves. This is why interactions with narcissists often feel like walking on eggshells, because their fragile sense of self is so easily threatened and their insecurity is so profound. The narcissist's perception of reality is deeply distorted, shaped by their insecurities and need for control. This distortion of reality is the lens through which they view the world and everyone in it. They see relationships not as partnerships based on mutual respect and understanding, but as power dynamics where they must always be in control. When you, as someone who cares for them, enter their world with genuine love, truth, and authenticity, it threatens their carefully constructed image. Your sincerity, your boundaries, and your attempts to establish a healthy, equal relationship expose the cracks in their facade, and they can't tolerate that. In the narcissist's mind, anything that challenges their superiority or exposes their vulnerability is seen as a personal attack. If you assert yourself, express your own needs, or act in ways that contradict the image they have of you, you are immediately viewed as the enemy. You are no longer the person they once relied on. You become a threat to the image they've worked so hard to maintain. This is where the shift occurs. No longer do you exist as someone they trust or care for, but as someone who has somehow wronged them, even if you've done nothing of the sort. They are quick to twist situations and reinterpret facts, turning everything you do into a negative, selfish, or malicious act. This warped perception leads them to believe that you are out to deceive or manipulate them, when in reality, you're simply being yourself, something they cannot tolerate. The narcissist's inability to see beyond their own needs and desires leaves them blind to your true intentions. You may have extended kindness, offered your time, and even sacrificed your own well-being for their benefit, yet they interpret every action through the lens of their own self-interest. They see your efforts as a manipulation, a strategy to gain something from them, even if that was never your intention. This makes them feel as though they are being scammed, as if you are somehow trying to take advantage of them or deceive them into giving you something they think you want. When they label you a scammer, it's not about the facts or the truth of your actions. It's a reflection of their distorted view of the world. In their eyes, you are no longer a person with your own needs and emotions, but simply a pawn in their game of control. The narcissist therefore manufactures a narrative where they are the victim and you are the perpetrator, unable to comprehend that their reality is shaped entirely by their insecurities and their refusal to accept any truth outside their own. When you offer genuine love and truth to a narcissist, you are engaging in an act that is foreign to them. The narcissist world revolves around them, and everything within it must serve their narrative of superiority and control. They exist in a reality where manipulation, deceit, and the distortion of facts are standard methods of maintaining their sense of power. So when you enter their life with authenticity, kindness, and honesty, it disrupts their world. Your truth shines a light on the darkness of their fabricated identity, and that's something they cannot tolerate. To the narcissist, love is not an exchange of genuine emotion and connection. It is a tool to validate their worth. They see others as extensions of themselves, objects to be used to boost their self-esteem and maintain their constructed image. Therefore, when you show them love that is not aimed at fulfilling their need for validation, they feel threatened. They cannot understand love that does not come with conditions, a love that is not rooted in admiration or dependence. Your love, grounded in selflessness and sincerity, makes them uncomfortable because it stands in stark contrast to the transactional relationships they're used to. The narcissist needs constant reinforcement of their grandiose self, and your love and truth challenge that reinforcement. When you refuse to bend to their will, or when you begin to expose the inconsistencies in their behavior, they begin to see you not as someone who cares, but as a threat to their carefully maintained facade. The truth that you offer forces them to confront the reality they have long avoided. They are not perfect. They are not always right. And they do not always deserve the admiration they demand. This is an uncomfortable reality that they cannot accept. And so rather than acknowledging the truth, they lash out. This reaction often manifests in accusations. When the narcissist feels threatened by the love and truth you bring, they will twist the narrative to make themselves the victim and you the villain. They will accuse you of being manipulative, deceitful, or of scamming them because it helps protect their fragile sense of self. By doing this, they deflect the discomfort of facing their own shortcomings and project that discomfort onto you. They can no longer see the genuine care and authenticity you bring, as it forces them to face the limitations and insecurities they are desperate to avoid. When you are accused of scamming a narcissist, it is crucial to understand that the accusation is not rooted in the truth of your actions, but in the narcissist's own inability to accept anything that challenges their sense of superiority and control. The narcissist is not concerned with objective reality or the facts of the situation. They are only concerned with their image and maintaining their grip on power. Any shift in that dynamic, whether it's you asserting your own boundaries, refusing to comply with their demands, or challenging their distorted view of reality, feels like an existential threat to them. It's a blow to their carefully constructed self-perception, and they cannot allow that to stand. So they react with what seems like irrationality, quickly accusing you of trying to deceive them or manipulate the situation. To the narcissist, this is a defense mechanism, a way of regaining control. They cannot allow themselves to be vulnerable or admit that they are in the wrong, so they create an alternate reality where you are the antagonist. They will invent a narrative in which you are the one who has done something wrong, and in doing so, they shift the focus away from their own behavior, flaws, and insecurities. The narcissist's inability to face their own vulnerabilities is what fuels their need to project blame onto others. In their mind, they cannot be the one at fault. They cannot be the one who is vulnerable or exposed. Therefore, if anything happens that threatens their illusion of control or perfection, it must be because of someone else. You become the scapegoat, the one who is at fault and the one who has wronged them in some way. This is why accusations of manipulation or deception are often so misplaced and unfounded. They are not based on your actions, but on the narcissist's distorted sense of reality. What makes this even more difficult is that the narcissist truly believes these accusations. Their perception of the world is so skewed by their insecurities and need for validation that they genuinely cannot see beyond their own agenda. In their mind, their accusation is the truth, and they will go to great lengths to convince others of it. This is why engaging in a battle to prove yourself right is often futile. The narcissist's perception is not something that can be corrected with logic or reason, because they are not operating from a place of truth. They are operating from a place of deep fear and defensiveness. When faced with a narcissist's false accusations, it is essential to hold firm to your own truth and identity, because their attempt to define you is rooted in their own distorted perception. The narcissist's words and actions do not have the power to dictate who you are unless you allow them to. Your worth is not tied to their validation, and their twisted narrative does not determine your reality. This is where your strength lies, in the knowledge that your sense of self does not depend on their approval or perception of you. You are not defined by their need to project blame or control. It can be difficult not to internalize the accusations, especially when you've tried to offer genuine love and support. However, the more you let their projections and manipulations infiltrate your sense of self, the more you give away your power. It's important to recognize that their accusations are not a reflection of who you are, but rather a reflection of their inability to accept the truth. You must separate yourself from their narrative, understanding that they are projecting their own flaws, insecurities, and fears onto you. They are not accusing you because of anything you've done, but because of their desperate need to maintain their illusion of control and superiority. In moments when the narcissist attempts to tear down your character with unfounded accusations, it is vital to remember that you are not obligated to engage in their drama or defend yourself endlessly. The more you try to explain yourself or justify your actions, the more you feed into the cycle of their manipulation. The narcissist thrives on conflict and control, and they will continue to escalate the situation as long as they feel they have the upper hand. To truly rise above their attacks, you must refuse to participate in their narrative. Your identity, your worth, and your integrity are not up for negotiation. Their accusations are merely a desperate attempt to regain power, to project their own insecurities onto someone else. You must protect your peace by not allowing their words to shake your foundation. Stand firm in your truth and allow their attempts at distortion to fall away. The narcissist will continue to live in their world of distortion, but you have the power to live in the truth of who you are, unaffected by their need to control your narrative. In conclusion, navigating a relationship with a narcissist can be an incredibly challenging experience, especially when you find yourself falsely accused of scamming or deceiving them. At the heart of these accusations lies a deep and complex psychological mechanism that the narcissist uses to protect their fragile sense of self. Narcissists, by their very nature, are driven by insecurities and a constant need for validation and control. This distorted need for control blinds them to the reality of others' feelings and intentions. When you, as someone who brings love, truth, and authenticity into their life, challenge the image they have so carefully constructed, it can provoke a defensive and destructive response. The narcissist worldview is one that revolves around them, where everything and everyone is seen as a means to fulfill their emotional needs. Your efforts to engage with them in a healthy, balanced way are not seen as genuine expressions of love, but rather as potential threats to their fragile identity. As such, when you do not meet their expectations or refuse to play by their rules, they often resort to accusations of manipulation or deceit. Accusations that have little basis in reality. These false claims are not a reflection of your actions or character, but are merely a projection of their own fears, insecurities, and inability to accept the truth. Understanding this dynamic is essential in maintaining your own peace of mind. When accused of scamming a narcissist, it is important to remember that the accusations are rooted in their need to deflect from their own vulnerabilities. They cannot bear to admit their flaws, so they project their failings onto you. This is where your resilience becomes crucial. The key is not to internalize their accusations, nor to engage in endless battles to defend yourself. The narcissist's reality is a warped version of the truth, shaped by their need to protect themselves from perceived threats. Trying to reason with them, explain yourself, or seek their validation is often futile, as their perception is clouded by their own distortions. Instead, the most empowering response is to stand firm in your own truth and identity. Do not let their words define you. Your worth is not determined by their perception of you. Recognize that you have done nothing wrong and that their accusations are a mechanism of control designed to keep you off balance and under their influence. By refusing to engage in their narrative, you reclaim your power and maintain your integrity. It may not always be easy, but by protecting your peace and refusing to let their false accusations shape your self-worth, you rise above the toxic dynamics of the relationship. Ultimately, the narcissist's need for control, validation, and manipulation is a reflection of their deep insecurity and fear. They are trapped in a world where their self-esteem must remain unchallenged, and anyone who threatens that image becomes an enemy. But you have the ability to remain anchored in your own truth, unaffected by their distortions. You are not the scammer in this situation. You are simply a person who refuses to be controlled or manipulated by their lies. Your worth, your identity, and your truth cannot be stolen or diminished by their accusations. You have the power to walk away from their false narrative and stand in the light of your own authenticity.